Deebo reworks his deal, and lots of people are signing in Ashburn. Let's have a podcast. What up, everybody? It's Beltway Football on Monumental Sports Network. My name's JP Finley. His name's Mitch Tischler. I guess combined, we're Beltway Football. What up, big man? Deebo reworked his deal. Schefter reported it. I've been trying to get some information on it. It seems like Schefter gets to keep this as an exclusive for a while because I don't even know that I've seen like Rap or Pelissero or anybody get it. It is not necessarily a surprise, but one of the things that I liked most about the deal was that they didn't rework it. But something tells me they were always going to have to, and that was kind of part of the agreement. Plus, he was getting a big old roster bonus anyway, so maybe this kind of just column A replaces column B. I'm trying to get more specific information on it because what we hear reported versus what actually ends up happening on the cap can always be like very, very differently. Um, but end of the day, I think they traded for Deebo. They're paying him probably below market. Cost him a fifth, and if he's good, that's all that matters. If he's good, he'll outperform this deal by a wide shot. Um, Not shocked. Not don't have a ton of opinion on it.
Yeah.
Just kind of changes the tone of everything, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, this team has cap space. They've made a couple moves this offseason, but no no bank breakers really. The rework deal will be interesting to see kind of what those final numbers look like, but I think like you said, I mean, you're getting a guy who's, going to be playing for his next contract, which I love, the opportunity for him to kind of ball out and earn something bigger. And quite frankly, if he plays to the level that, we have seen from him in the past, then he's going to outplay this deal. But ultimately, I love like the way that I think he can work into this Cliff Kingsbury offense, all the different
Totally.
ways he can work him out. And so he's going to have every opportunity to kind of revisit the pre Christian McCaffrey days of being a utility knife or whatever in an offense, and hopefully Cliff is able to get the most out of him.
Yeah, I mean, you want him to stay healthy, stay fit, and if you cross those two, if you get both of those, I think the production will come. I think Cliff, I think there's a reason they targeted him and didn't really make it a secret. The whole time we were in Indy, that was like the most talked about potential move. So over the cap for timestamp guides, Wednesday, 7:10 p.m. Over the cap hasn't updated this yet because they still have Deebo's previous deal with 17 mil on the cap and no guarantees. Obviously now there's guarantees, which changes, any sort of release. All of that's going to change. On the old deal, they had about 20 million in cap space. Maybe call it 23 if you want. All of that's going to get updated, but until somebody sees some terms of the deal, and my gut tells me, I texted with a couple of people, there's probably going to be some void years on the back of this thing that allow them to spread that money out. And I think the cap number will go down. Um, but I
It'll
just, I
it'll give
don't,
them flexibility moving forward. I mean,
yeah,
we see the dummy years at the end of pretty much every deal. It allows that guaranteed money to be spread out, so it's not all in one year.
I guess my bigger question is a couple things. I think a Terry deal is going to happen, and I think Terry, for a wide receiver in the NFL, is arguably like the most mature, rational, normal dude out there. And I don't think he's the type to allow this business move impact his business move. They've got a ton of time on that, but this does seem to this is now a new factor in conversation because what do we know about every locker room we've ever been in? Everybody knows everybody else's contract, period. Not in a good way or a bad way. It's just a fact.
The Jamar Chase deal also is a factor in all of this as well. I mean,
I would think Higgins even drives up Terry more than Chase does.
more so, I'm not saying Chase isn't, I mean, Terry isn't going to get Jamar Chase money, but you see the framework of what these top end receivers are getting, and you can kind of start figuring out where kind of Terry slots in there with the rest of the league.
I mean, what's crazy is Higgins is clearly not the top dog, and his AAV is 26. I think you could say, I mean, Waddle's not the top dog in Miami, and his AAV is 29. I think you're probably talking about 30 with Terry.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the baseline. I don't think it's that hard to figure out, especially with the deal DK got. But so this Deebo deal, then you've got some Terry considerations. Then you also, and I can't imagine a world where Marshawn Lattimore feels entitled to ask for more guarantees after all the injuries and the concerns. But like you've got that there. Laramie Tunsil, when he did his introductory presser, which I thought he was pretty cool for all the different things we've heard from Houston.
Yeah.
Sounds like he's ready to go. When he was asked about that, he's like, yeah, I'm not really going to get into all that. They've got a really motivated player. Um, I wonder if you rework Tunsil's deal, which currently has guaranteed money on this year, but next year doesn't, and there's no voids after that. Like I don't know how a lot of that will work. Um, I don't I find it hard to believe that these guys made the Deebo deal in a vacuum. One, when they traded for him without knowing this was coming, and two, that knowing this was coming, maybe they alerted some other guys that it might pop up on their Instagram and they might notice this. Um, I feel like DQ and AP run a program that they are proactive and not reactive. And I think proactive leadership in these kinds of situations helps a ton. I don't think any of this causes strife. I think everybody's cool and certainly Debo's cool, but it introduces some new conversations.
It does. I think two things that are, I think, of note or interesting. Marshawn Lattimore, no pun intended, doesn't really have a leg to stand on to ask for much more here in Washington. I mean, depending on what
I
you
don't think he can ask for anything else.
right, depending on what you think this team knew about him when they made the deal, as far as the injury and how concerning it was, the play on the field when he did play doesn't warrant that conversation to start. I think the same can almost be said for Laramie Tunsil in some regards. You know, he's a extremely good football player. There's no question about it. I think that he's going to be very good here, and it's going to be fun to watch him. For me, watch him on the line over there. But there are concerns about his play, the penalties last year. There are the negative dings that you have to have on your radar when you start talking about these things. But I think ultimately, you had Laramie sitting there talking about, how he wanted to come to Washington and he's excited to block for Jaden Daniels. I like that he knew enough that Jaden threw a touchdown pass to an offensive lineman last year. That was cool. He was kind of,
I
starting
bet
to jockey for
linemen
that.
across the league know when that happens.
Big men across America knew that
Yeah,
happened. We all were very excited about it. But I think that it certainly introduces a little bit of a wrinkle when you start talking about those guys. But as far as we've seen from DQ and AP, this thing is pretty buttoned up, and they don't really put up with a lot of shenanigans. And the some of the stuff that we've seen in Washington in years past. And so ultimately, maybe those guys kind of are like, hey, Adam, you just took care of Deebo into this. Is there any room for that? But I don't think it's going to be something that creates, like you said, strife or holdouts or any of that kind of stuff when we look at this season getting ready to get underway.
agreed. There have been a number. Hold on now, real quick. Shout out to Mitch. He's a problem solver. People said his audio was no good. You got a microphone.
We got a microphone.
Congratulations, big man.
Yeah, my apologies for the bad audio. I didn't realize it was as bad as it had gotten, but it's fixed and it won't be a problem in the future.
There's been a number of signings, and over the last week or so, there's been a number of Zooms with the media and players that have signed or re-signed. I thought Tunsil was pretty cool. He said he damn sure can't wait to block for Jaden Daniels. He has a really cool voice. Noah Brown was good on Deebo and on Tunsil. He called Tunsil a security guard on the left side.
I like that a lot. I was into that.
And what I liked even more so from Noah Brown, because they played together in Houston, he's like, man, he's not the loudest type, but he's a leader. Like, whenever I hate the whispers after a dude gets traded, right? And I think it kind of helps that Noah Brown was in Houston and can kind of set the record straight. At the same time, what's a dude supposed to say? From the what's a dude supposed to say file, Olamide Zaccheaus got signed by the Bears, and inevitably at his presser, he gets asked a question about Jaden and Caleb Williams. And what is he supposed to say? He said, yeah, man, I think Caleb's got the same skills Jaden does, and I'm really excited to work with him, and we can build that same connection, and we can look as good as that offense did. There's no slight there. Like I feel like it's more coming from Chicago this way, and then some people react. Let's ignore the completely manufactured Caleb Jaden nonsense. Like OZ signed with the Bears. That's his new quarterback. What's he supposed to say?
Dude, but there is a weird amount of noise from Chicago with regard to Jaden.
I think
There
that's
was
because last year they sucked, and they're like, "Oh my God, did we make a mistake and not get the right guy?"
a fair amount like in the playoffs when Jaden, took a couple sacks against the Eagles and ran around some. There was like this weird like, oh, Caleb would have been skewered for doing that. And I was always like, if Caleb got to the NFC Championship game, you get a little bit of leeway in terms of what you're doing out there. But regardless, like you said, there's not a lot that OZ could have said there. And quite frankly, I'm not that concerned about it. But Javon Kinlaw was cool when we talked to him talking about,
I'm
um,
from DC.
yeah,
I'm a
DC and
he
you
said
know,
I'm a Skins fan. Maybe he's hinting at something. I imagine
oh God, JP.
there is a subset of fans that don't actually care about the team and care more about the weird political radicalization of a football team. They took that and ran. I like Kinlaw. They got another DC kid, Eddie Goldman. Uh,
Yep.
if you want to be underwhelmed with free agency, that's fine. I think the biggest tasks we all said going into this were build up your O line and your D line, and they absolutely built up their O line. Um, I think if you get a lot from Kinlaw, could really help. I think Dietrich Wise could really help.
That
I
was
think,
yeah.
go ahead. I mean, we talked at length about Kinlaw and what we think it means for Newton and everything, but I think Wise might be more of a role than we think. I think Eddie Goldman is a different body type than they've had, like really a nose.
Bringing back Sheldon Day too.
Yeah.
I think you look at the all the juice they were able to squeeze out of some bodies that folks around the league may not have thought had a whole lot last year. And I think you're looking at this offseason, pretty similarly to that. This is J- how well Jaden Daniels played last year covered up so many, so many blemishes on this roster, both offensively and defensively. And as we move forward, hopefully Jaden continues to ascend and continues to kind of lift up the entire team around him. But this is starting to follow. They're kind of searching for the guys that they want, who they can kind of help develop. Hopefully longer term, but also filling holes with guys who have high floors. They might not have the highest ceiling, but they have high floors, and they know the type of players that they're bringing in here. And you know, this isn't a roster that you're going to be able to get to be equal to, what the Eagles looked like last year right away. And you're seeing an organization that is, trying to take advantage of the situation they're in and win, and bring in players that can help you while also not, tying themselves down for the future into contracts and situations that, that may come back to bite you in the butt as we go, 2, 3, 4 years down the road.
Yeah, and I want to be clear. Like, I'm not, if you are underwhelmed or skeptical of the rebuilt or the moves defensively, I'm not telling you you're wrong. We'll just have to wait and see. But even if they had signed, even if they got worked out a new deal with John Allen and added, Josh Sweat, I think we'd still have to wait and see.
Yeah.
So I think they've gone after some different body types, which I find really interesting. And I think last year they inherited a group, and now they're kind of building out specifically DQ, Daryl Tapp, Joe Witt. I think they're building out the defense they want, and I'm at least intrigued to see what they have. And dude, if the offense is better, that helps the defense too.
Chris, your thoughts on the longer Trey Hendrickson kind of lingers out there? It sounds from what we've heard that the Bengals are asking for a truckload to get him, and obviously that wouldn't make sense for the Commanders to do. But the longer this thing kind of lingers out there, and the closer we get to the draft, we always talk about deadline spurn deals. I don't know that the Commanders really are in the market to give up more picks in a draft that they've already kind of given up a bunch from. But the longer this thing lingers, the lower the price has to go, and at some point you're going to get to a point where the asking price is worth going for. I don't know that the Commanders are the team that ultimately ends up doing it, but I think it's interesting that this thing is drawn out as long as it has, because so many of these players that have been given an opportunity to find a trade have either found themselves traded or ultimately, cut if they're not able to. The Bengals aren't cutting Hendrickson. Let's start there. But as far as the trade portion goes, do you think that the longer this thing goes, Commanders have a chance to maybe pull something off as we get closer to the draft?
I don't know. I think there's a lot of factors, obviously. One thing that if you're Cincy, you might just be willing to find out is Hendrickson played last year without guaranteed money on the deal. So there's a track record of him perhaps not loving playing without guarantees, but doing it anyway and playing well. So
Yeah.
he's going into another year with no guaranteed cash, but they were like, dude, you did it last year. Everything worked out great. Let's not worry about it. Two, signing Chase and Higgins gives them cap flexibility. Um, it does. But what Adam Peters said at the combine was, we don't care so much about the cap. That's for the media. We we judge things based on cash, on the amount of cash going out. And so if you are Cincinnati Bengals owner Mike Brown, you have a lot of cash going out now because while the bonuses on the salary cap get divided up over the terms of the contract, the actual cash has to go into escrow. Like
Right.
you have to move that $100, $100 million, whatever that is, from your account into an escrow account. And like that's a big nut going out, man. And to rework a Hendrickson deal, if that's what it requires, you want to add another. What does Hendrickson get? 2 years at 70 now?
A
The way
lot.
it's gone
Yeah.
up. But to your point, I think we don't see much on this unless something happens where he stays in Cincy. Like if he stays in Cincy, that could happen at any time over the next couple of weeks. But I think a Hendrickson thing, if there's a thing, happens closer to the draft, if not draft day or even during the draft. Like if you're the Bengals and you're holding out, holding out, holding out, and then there's nothing there, and Washington doesn't pick till 29, maybe you make a call. Or dude, Trent Williams, everybody was waiting, waiting, waiting. He didn't get traded till Friday.
Right.
It wasn't a Thursday trade. So I I think there's still a lot of TBD on all that.
Certainly. And one question I've gotten a
And
lot.
Washington's not the only team that's going to be involved.
Right. I think that's the biggest point. If the price starts dropping, there's going to be other teams that are ready to hop in there. One other question I've gotten a lot on is about comp picks, which became a huge storyline under the Ron Rivera, time frame here. The
Hell,
John
Bruce.
and
Nobody talked more about comp picks when he was getting a comp for letting Kirk walk.
So
Jeez.
comp picks only work for free agents, free agents that leave your place versus free agents that come in. And it's dollars that the players you leave earn versus the amount that you sign. So when you look at what the Commanders have done in free agency, none of the big moves count towards comp picks. So John Allen leaving, not involved with comp picks.
Well,
Signing
because they cut him.
right, because they cut him. Laramie Tunsil, Deebo Samuel, not involved in comp picks because they were trades. So just so folks can kind of get a feel for where this team stands. I don't know what the dollars out versus in are with this team, but regardless, it's not, we're not at a point that we're looking at the Commanders being added a third round comp pick at the moment
Third
because
round's also the highest you can get, and it's really a fourth because it's the end of the
it's the
third.
end of the third, yeah.
But top of my head, Diami, OZ, uh,
Right.
Cornelius Lucas,
You're talking 20-ish mil out the
St.
door,
Jude.
and they're signing, 20 plus in free.
I would expect them to get they got no compensation picks this year. I would expect maybe you can get a comp fifth or something, but I wouldn't expect much of anything there.
Right. And the comp picks are the third through the seventh round, and they're picks that are added at the end of those rounds. So a third round comp pick is really a fourth round comp pick is really the start of the fifth round and on down. So just to answer that question for a bunch of people who have asked.
Cool. Last thing I have, Deebo's going to wear number 1.
I like it.
I saw this from PFT. PFT commenter tweeted an extremely slimming number. Can't do better than that in the slimming department.
For those that are concerned about Deebo's weight,
Um,
any notable number ones in Commanders franchise history that you can think of off the top of your head?
Noah Igbenogany, who wore 1 last year.
Yeah, Noah.
Uh, Dude, I think
Yeah.
for most of football history, wearing number 1 was like the kicker, like Al Del Greco.
Jahan Dotson, the other one.
He was 1?
Yeah, I believe so, right? Actually, yeah, here I just looked it up. There have been two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine players in Redskins Washington football team Commanders history to wear number one. Scott Bentley, DeAndre Carter, Jahan Dotson, Noah Benogany, Sam Pelescu, Ryan Placemeter, John Potter, Reggie Roby, and Matt Turk. Like you said, bunch of punters there at the bottom there. So hopefully Deebo can make his mark on the number one in burgundy and gold.
Yeah, for sure. I what else did I have? You see that Kirk is on the show quarterback again.
Kirk is in the Business Hall of Fame for the contracts that he signed. The Falcons guaranteeing his money by not cutting him by the start of the league year is, I would say, I guess, interesting at the least and crazy at the worst. But he's gonna. That's his. This is the third team that is going to take 100+ mil from over the course of his career, and he's going to be making a lot of money
But the
to probably
reason I
back up
brought that
Penny.
up, all that is pertinent information. When they did it the first time, and it was Mahomes, Mariota, and Kirk, right?
Yeah,
I wouldn't I wouldn't have thought about, but I wouldn't have known, was there remuneration for being a part of this, or maybe it's part of some larger production company they have ownership in, whatever the heck. If Kirk's doing it twice, my man's getting paid.
you better
Like
believe it.
maybe that first time, but there's no way you're doing it again, especially when you're projected to be a backup. Like it's kind of a weird situation. But I'll watch the hell out of it.
Dude, Joe Burrow and Jared Goff as two of the other guys. I mean, that's going to be a pretty fun show to watch. And as much as I'm going to enjoy watching that, as much as I love watching Hard Knocks, I love that nothing in Washington it seems to be trending in that direction. These guys can just go to work and not worry about the cameras flying around them all the time.
Give me some picks. It's Wednesday night. The tournament
I got
starts.
I'll give you my upset special of the tournament. Your Bryant Bulldogs are going to beat Michigan State outright as 17.5 point underdogs. They
Wow.
are one of the tallest starting fives in all of college basketball. They lead the nation in blocks per game. They crash the boards as well as anybody. Michigan State, obviously, Tom Izzo is scary as is. Michigan State thrives off beating teams on the boards. I don't think they're going to beat Bryant. They're not going to be able to beat Bryant as much on the boards. And every year there's one of those upsets that nobody talks about. No one's mentioned Bryant. People are picking Michigan State to the Final Four, this, that, and the other. I like it as a fly under the radar shot in the dark at like plus 1,500 or something like that.
Got me intrigued, big man.
There we go.
Are you coming into March Madness red hot? I know that last year we were at the casino and you were very hot. You couldn't lose. I don't know how the conference championship weekend treated you.
Conference championship weekend was ups and downs. I had a couple real hot days and a couple real cold days. But I feel pretty good heading into this. I feel pretty good heading into this tournament. I mean, I nailed both games yesterday, which was the play-in games, which was great. Mount St. Mary's is in the process of beating American right now. I had that as well. So things
Is it
are.
going under. I have the under.
Oh boy, it's 81 points with 30 seconds left in the first half. So
That is not going under.
that
That's
under is probably dead already.
130.
Yeah. um, but yeah, there are a couple little upsets in there. I think you might get High Point over Purdue, and I like McNeese to give Clemson a lot of hard time over there. So yeah, there's a couple little upsets there. How about you? You got a pick?
No, I'm doing one bracket that I have to manually fill out. I'm not doing anything online. Um, I'm gonna I all I care about is Maryland making the Sweet 16. It's the only thing I care about.
I
I can pull a rabbit out of a hat. Auburn could win it all. I don't know.
okay. Who's
Might
your
be
national
Bryant.
champion?
Might be Bryant.
Have you filled out your bracket yet?
I'm not. You'll be shocked to know I'm waiting till the absolute last moment.
That doesn't surprise me one bit. I have Houston beating Auburn in the title. I have
I like that.
Alabama and Maryland as the four as my final four.
You got the Terps in the Final Four.
Yeah, a little bit of a
They're
homer
good.
pick. I don't know
They're
that I
good.
actually believe it, but I feel like when they get hot and they play well, they're as good as anybody in the country. And I've seen them play. I went to two Terp home games this year. They scored 100 plus against Iowa, and they scored 98, I think, against Ohio State. So maybe in my head, from watching them average over 100 points a game in games that I attended, I'm a little skewed, but I think Maryland can make a good run here.
Skew away, big man. I hate that the committee sent him to Seattle. Otherwise, I'd be going to a game. Sweet 16 in San Fran is still too far.
Yeah,
Um, I do want to have a conversation about the rule change proposals, but we'll get there. We got owners meetings in a couple weeks. I am done. My list is complete, assuming your list is complete.
my list is complete. We're going to talk to Deebo Samuel hopefully tomorrow. So hopefully we'll have another pod for you later in this week, and we'll go through some of the rule change
We're
discussions.
not potting on Thursday and Friday of the NCAA tournament.
I was
I
more
know you.
thinking,
You're going to be boozing,
so
and
you're not going to be.
tomorrow I'm not. I am moderating a panel, Mitch. Um, the mayor's office asked me to moderate a panel. So
We're both doing very on Monday. I had the opportunity to work with Tarek El Bashir to present to a bunch of STEM students from DC about broadcasting and television and technical mumbo jumbo and stuff. So I've done my adult duties
I
for the
hope you gave
week.
him a better word than mumbo jumbo.
I did. I did not use any. I did not use any alliterations there.
All
But
right, let's get out of here. Made it this far. I'll leave here.